Problems with the control part of the Centers for Disease Control.
The agency is dealing with an embarrassing and potentially deadly mistake that left a lab tech exposed to Ebola. We'll speak with Dr. Devi about that mix-up after the break.
CDC officials are now checking as many as a dozen lab workers for Ebola after a technician in Atlanta may have been exposed to the deadly virus. This all began on Monday when CDC researchers mistakenly transferred a sample of the virus to another lab, a less secure lab, in the same building. The technician who handled that sample is being monitored for 21 days. So joining us now is Dr. Devi Numpiaparumpel. She is in Atlanta this morning. Dr. Devi, thanks for being with us.
Oh, good to see you. Good morning.
Thank you. So what was your first reaction when you heard about this incident?
Well, when I first heard about it, I thought about the lab technician who was exposed. I mean, it's horrible if you're working to try to find a cure for a disease or save these lives, and then suddenly you yourself might be in this position of being infected. And then afterwards, I started thinking about the larger picture. I mean, for the CDC itself, this is arguably the place where the best infectious disease specialists in the world are working. And for this to happen there, especially since there's been a series of incidents this year, I mean, it doesn't look good. It makes people potentially lose confidence in the CDC's abilities. And then if you think even on a larger level than that, for scientists who are risking their lives and putting themselves in this type of position, it might raise some more concerns. Just like a couple of months ago, we had more concerns about healthcare workers. Would they want to risk their lives? Would they be stigmatized? Would they be involved in this controversial quarantine period? So we were concerned about whether people would really risk their safety for others.
Absolutely. I mean, when you see these kind of mistakes happening, like you said, this is supposed to be the varsity squad of disease researchers in this country. And of course, human errors do happen. But again, these are the top experts, and they're still making these potentially deadly errors. How does it happen? I mean, how are there not protocols that make sure this kind of thing never happens?
Exactly. Well, in different industries, we do have a lot of protocols. I mean, in medicine, for example, if you go in for a surgery, you'll have multiple people ask you what your name is, what your social security number is, what your date of birth is. So it's a very redundant process, but it actually saves people's lives. You don't operate on the wrong person, or at least, those numbers, we don't really hear about those types of cases. I mean, the same thing happens in the airline industry. You have your pilot, your co-pilot, your whole team that's checking to see what happens. So you wonder why the CDC doesn't have something similar, or maybe they do, but there's something going wrong in that process. I mean, part of me also wonders, if it's not just these protocols, just on a basic, human level, human nature, there are a few things that you can do to prevent mistakes. So, each of us, before we do something, let's say it's something complicated, you have to plan out exactly what you're doing before you start. You think about, well, what would happen if I didn't have this supply? What would I do if I didn't have the right support in terms of the staffing? You think about everything that could go wrong, and then you come up with a plan, and then, that avoids mistakes. And then we think about the secondary levels, like let's say you make a mistake, is there somebody else who notices the mistake, or would you be able to tell right away, and would you be forthcoming? I mean, I think, some of this has to do with the culture, because we all make mistakes, like you said, that's normal human nature. But you have to work in an environment where when you make a mistake, you realize, and then you have some, if you come forward, you're not going to be punished necessarily. People are going to at least be like, okay, good thing you came forward, let's take care of that.
Right, Dr. Devi, you mentioned this is not the first time, even just this year, that CDC has had a similar problem. There was a bird flu case, there's an anthrax case. Safety experts are just kind of blown away by this. What is CDC doing to fix it?
Well, in July, there was a congressional hearing where they said that they were going to review their safety protocols. The Ebola situation came up after that, and so I'm not sure if maybe that affected it, and they were busy taking care of the Ebola situation, too busy to actually review the protocols further, or if this is just a fluke incident. I mean, it's happening around holiday time, right? So perhaps they're short-staffed. There could be other things going on, but like you said, I mean, when you have a series of incidents, then that's a lot different than when you have one mistake. It makes you wonder what actually is, what's happening and how many mistakes are actually going on that we haven't caught. I mean, we hear about these things because, somebody either comes forward or because there's some consequence, but there could be mistakes taking place where we haven't really seen the consequences.
Wow, very disconcerting. These are just the mistakes we've heard about. Dr. Devi, thank you.